So kicking off the first of my tarot series, we're going to talk about tarot decks and if there is a right answer to which deck to start with when you are first getting into your very deep dive into tarot. And there's primarily two schools of thought when it comes to choosing your deck to form a relationship with. One of them is to choose whatever deck that you are drawn to because that's the one that you will be able to connect to more easily. Meow. The other school of thought is to stick with Rider Waite. What I have noticed that with the latter explanation, there's not too much of a reason as to why other than it was the first, so that's where you should start. Which I like to question things, so I of course wanted to dive deeper into that. My series has heavy emphasis on subjective relational experience with the cards, so it may seem a little confusing as to why I would take the stance that Rider Waite is indeed the right answer, but I'll explain why. It'd be like a whole different video for me to talk about the origin of Rider Waite and its significance. So maybe I'll do that later. But just as a jumping point, the artist of Rider Waite and the person who structured it worked very closely together to build this system. So there was very little gap between the intention of the symbolism and the art that portrayed it. Of course, there's always going to be some interpretation. They're two separate humans, but this was formulated under the system of Golden Dawn, and there was a structure. Also, something that some of you may not know is that almost all tarot decks are based on the Rider Waite structure and symbolism. They're either based on it or they are a reaction to it. And this has kind of become like this trickled down thing where artists have their own interpretations of a very old system. So naturally, there's some dilution that happens there. From my own experience, I started with the Deviant Moon Tarot, which is a super badass, like gothic, macabre deck that I still think the art is really badass. But its symbolism of Rider Waite was mixed in with the artist's interpretation in a way that made it very muddy and confusing for me as a beginner and as someone who really wanted to deeply understand tarot from its roots. Rider Waite is like the language of tarot. And when you start with another artist's interpretation, another artist's deck, it's like trying to learn poetry in a language you don't understand yet. So you absolutely should move past Rider Waite and learn other decks because that's kind of the whole point. It's kind of akin to drawing. You have to learn the rules of perspective and scale, and you have to be able to understand how to draw before you can break the rules intentionally. That's kind of the same way with tarot. This sort of